Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast. Your ears don't deceive you. It is Sam leading the blind right now. Jack isn't with us, but that's okay. Today we are covering the first game of the season, the Everton game, and some other stuff as well. And I'm here with the person who spawned me. Dad, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very good. Thank you very much. And looking forward to actually talking about real games of football rather than just try to make up stuff about possible signings.
Oh, the salt. The salt has already come through. I feel like I'm getting waves from you. It's like an ocean. It's great. Now, speaking of games. Now, we've had a conversation about this beforehand. Yes, we're going to talk Fulham. Of course, we're going to talk Fulham. We owe that to our wonderful listeners. But we do feel that it is imperative today, or maybe I just feel like it's imperative. And I want to talk to you about this. Now, the Matildas, the Women's World Cup. Just indulge me for a minute here. I know this isn't Fulham related, but it's Australian related, and we are Australian. It is incredible watching these women. What the game against France was one of the best games of football I've seen in such a long time. I said to Paris, even though this is the start of the Fulham season, there is nothing that Fulham can do tonight that can top the game that I've just seen. The longest penalty shootout in World Cup history. It's so infectious here in Australia. I feel like it's really hard to articulate it. My nephew was practicing penalty kicks. I feel like that's incredible. Dad, give me your thoughts on this.
Yeah, look, we had a very long discussion about this prior to going live
Hmm.
um, about you know, the interest there might be in talking about the Women's World Cup when we're actually a Fulham podcast. But wow, I mean, this is football. This is World Cup international football, and I think what may not be apparent to people outside of Australia is just how much this tournament and Australia's involvement in this tournament has captured the nation's interest and imagination. It's
It's
really
incredible.
something. And for our English and UK listeners and followers, it's really akin to what kind of happens during the Euros or perhaps when the England men's team is in the World Cup. And I think what's so incredible about all of this is that Australia are far from top seeds and were never really expected to do well, or certainly as well as they've done to date. And in a very unassuming and totally kind of natural way, they've
Mhm.
just gone about their business, led by a very popular and mercurial Sam Kerr. And it's just remarkable the way they've captured the nation, the highest sports viewing stats on TV for
7.2
20,
million.
yeah, 20 years since
It's
the Sydney
crazy.
Olympics, which
Like
is remarkable.
I can't stress how big it is. Like, and it's just, I mean, this is the furthest an Australian team has ever gotten in a World Cup. And the fact that it's the women's game as well is really just like the icing on the cake. And how, like, I was saying to you earlier, 3 years ago, this is unprecedented to have this level of spotlight on the sport. It's so incredible. I mean, I'm not sure if any of our followers are really going to be like overly invested in what we're discussing right now, but it's such a good competition. It's brought such a wonderful eye on women's sport and just Australia in general. I mean, we've seen it before in a couple of different sports, but when Australia doesn't really have that many opportunities to get fully behind their team in an international capacity, and when it happens, man, it's huge. It's so big here. It's so big here.
Uh,
Anything more? Yeah, yeah. No, Dad,
yeah,
you go.
look, I think what I'd equate it to is really it's surprising reaction. This is what I think we're trying to articulate here.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
and I'll put my hand up and actually say your brother-in-law, my son-in-law Josh, said to me, "Oh, there's a Matilda's game coming up." This is a few months ago. He said that'd be good to get around, and I went, "Yeah, not sure. I'm really that up for it."
And I'd
And
be the same.
I feel a bit silly actually having reacted like that because now I'm absolutely gripped. And my wife, who is not a football fan in any way, is gripped. And my daughter, who's not a football fan in any way, is totally gripped.
It's amazing.
And I equate this to times in certainly in England when we were living there, when something really random in like in an Olympic Games, a cyclist would suddenly start doing well, or a cycling team would suddenly start doing well, and people would just get on board and just get carried away with the story and the narrative of what they were doing. Um, and I think it's really fascinating as to what the secret sauce is that really draws people in. And I
It's
think with
narrative.
this, yeah, but it's really interesting. Is it clever marketing, or is it truly a really great story? And you know, I would say that quite a few people know who Sam Kerr is,
Yeah.
and um, but I would say that not a single, well, not that's ridiculous. There would be 2% of the nation, maybe 1% of the nation, who would have known the names of any of these girls
Oh,
before
yeah.
all this started, and knew
I will put
nothing
my
at
hand up.
all about them.
I will put my hand up.
And
I didn't know who Mackenzie Arnold is. I didn't know who Mary Fowler was. I didn't know who Rasso was. And now I can just list those. I can just list
yeah,
those. And that,
yeah.
like, I mean, I think you're 100% right because it does require marketing. It does require people to get behind the subject matter, but the story has to be there. And oh my god, it's such a great story. I mean, it's akin to like our season last season, but it like I can't stress how much of like another level it's on in Australia, and obviously as well because it's in Australia right now. There's this added layer to it. I'm watching the game tomorrow at like a pub. I've seen, I'm sure you've seen as well, just content all around Australia of just people peaking, and they honestly. I'm just actually looking at the chat right now. It's really wonderful to actually see you guys engaging with what we're discussing because truth be told, I didn't really think you guys would give it that much of a shit, but we just really wanted to talk about it. So it's actually really nice to see you guys being like supportive of this. But
Well,
anyway,
I think the other really great thing about this is that it feels like a bit of a continuation of the Ashes series, which it was.
you're
No,
chomping
seriously.
at the bit to talk about the ashes. No, go, go, go,
Yeah.
go, 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 go.
I've been kept seriously away from talking about the Ashes, but because I won't stop. But I mean, how good that Australia's run, which is kind of against all odds, beaten a couple of giants along the way. Um, I, I suspect, I don't know, but I suspect that the Lionesses may or may not have been picking up that much media because,
Mm,
frankly, they're highly seeded and they were
yeah.
probably expected to get to where they've got to.
Yeah, well, after
And
the Euros, because they won the Euros, and then from
yeah,
then onwards, they've kind of been like it's either been them or the US that a lot of people thought was going to
and
take it
they're
out.
very high profile, and
Yes,
they deservedly should be getting down to the last four, if not
absolutely.
getting themselves into the final. For
Mm.
Australia, I can't remember exactly what the Matildas are seeded, but it's
Not
very
crazy
low.
high. Yeah,
No.
yeah.
I think it's I heard 27th, but I'm sure that's wrong. I thought it was
Mm,
more like ninth, 10th, 12th, something like that.
mm.
Um, But yeah, I mean, how good that this will be a matchup against the old enemy. Um, you know,
I
it,
feel sick about it. I actually feel
it,
physically ill about it. My heart is really torn.
and again, for those who aren't aware, I think there was a great meme put up on social media just after the Matilda's game on Saturday, where they showed, I think it was 2015, where the Australian women's team played.
Yes.
There were like
Yeah.
300 people in the crowd.
Yeah.
Utterly no one gave a shit,
Mm,
and the game last Saturday was played in front of, what was it, 60 odd thousand
mm.
people, and the
Yeah.
game against England tomorrow evening will be in front of 75,000 people.
And I cannot stress in it as well how much my sister and mother do not give a shit about this. And yeah, they are fully behind it. They are fully invested. My sister, so we've got a family group chat. My sister thought I was
they
being
don't give a shit about
condescending.
that, so Craven.
They don't give a shit about that's okay. That's true. But no, like my sister thought I was being condescending when I was like, "This is awesome. I'm so glad you're like interested in the World Cup." Because she watched the Sweden Spain game on her own accord. I didn't even get
Hilarious.
that game. No, but like, and she was like,
And
"You're
they
making fun of me."
actually went home to watch the next game.
Oh, it's
after the
brilliant.
Matildas game.
I mean,
Fantastic.
like you can't write that level of influence. Now, I feel that we've covered this enough because it's such a great story, and I implore anybody who's not watching the Women's World Cup to really get involved because, yeah, this is one hell of a ride. Speaking of rides, Dad, we have started our ride. We have started our ride, like first game of the season. No, I'm not like bit of a meh game. Let's call it what it is. First half, we wrote off Everton as the not very. They didn't have the attacking prowess. They really came at us super hard. But fortunately for us, Everton are a bit shit. But that didn't stop them from seriously trying, especially in that opening 20 minutes. They were really pumping us. Bert Leno's amazing. Yeah, I mean, let's keep the interview format going, Daddy. Tell me about your first half.
Do you know what? Can I summarize the entire way I feel about this? I love the fact that we've got 3 dirty points. I love the
Yeah.
fact that we are now that team.
Are we
As
that team? I'm not sure if I can give us we're that team.
I think we're getting there. I heard Dan Crawford on his own podcast, The Green Pole, a couple of nights ago, saying, and I thought it was a very nice way to express it. He said, "This is not ice skating. You do not get points for style. You get points for getting it over the line."
It's just about the
Yep.
win. No,
And you know
I
what?
get that.
You know what? I'm not going to say it wasn't pretty because actually our possession football in the first half was actually pretty good. It was just a little bit ineffective, and
I can
they
actually go to
did
the
cause us.
slide.
They
Yeah.
definitely caused us some problems going forward in the first half, and it looked like we were potentially going to concede were it not for Bernd Leno, who's had the game of his life. I can't even
He was
remember
amazing.
the number of shots he stopped, but
Well, if you look
I
at
think
the
it's no
screen
secret.
here, if you look at the screen here, Dad, 19 shots, 9 shots on target, all of them sufficiently covered by Bert Leno. Like he was incredible the whole game. In a very I feel like in a very lackluster kind of game. Like first game of the season, away game for us, against a kind of flailing Everton side. I don't really know what their future is. But Bert Leno was a monster. He controlled everything that game. I mean, I think it's fair to say probably if we had Rodak in, I reckon we might have conceded at least one. I mean, maybe that's a big call, but
Oh, it's a very harsh comparison for poor old Rodak. But look,
I mean, it's boys to men, isn't it? Though.
My thoughts about this going into the game was that we've talked about giving our predictions for the month of August, or the first month, the first 3 or 4 fixtures, and beyond the Everton game, which albeit away, first game of the season, didn't feel like we were that well prepared. I was genuinely concerned, even though we should be beating them. I was genuinely concerned that we may not get a result, or that we may have to put up with a point. And then if you look to the games following, it's a pretty difficult set of fixtures against Brentford and Man City and Arsenal. And it seems to me so enormously important that we pick up 3 points to start off here, and at least, I wouldn't call it breathing space, but at least we're on the board, because I'd
Yeah.
hate to get to the 4th fixture having faltered at the first 2 and, suddenly really be under the pump and starting to scratch our heads, as to whether this was going to be the season of nightmares that we were dreading.
Yeah, it doesn't feel
So
like the season
I,
of
I'm pretty
nightmares.
happy with the 3 points. No, no,
Yeah,
no.
it
But you know
doesn't.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the
No, I
three
do.
points.
Now, I just want to draw attention to beloved Colm. We love you, Colm here. And now Colm says, "I thought Raul was starved of any decent chances." Now, do you think that's a
Mm.
fair assessment, or do you reckon? Because it was a bit of a weird game. I felt that Ream was like a little bit off for a lot of the game. I understand why they decided to go with Ream in that back line over Bassi. And maybe you disagree with that. I think
Well,
purely just for a captain at the back. I know he didn't wear the armband, but Tim Ream's always a captain. Tim Ream looked really shaky, and he let through a lot of stuff. But I mean,
look, I thought it was quite a controversial decision to not select Bassi.
mm,
I know that sounds kind of mad on the basis that Tim Ream was a stalwart last year, but the guy is not match fit, even if he's physically fit. He's coming back from an injury. I don't see that that's causing him any real problem in his, it's not his, it's his arm. He's got a cast on. He surely wouldn't be playing unless the bone had properly knitted. But he hasn't had a lot of game time, and
mm,
I think that showed. And in contrast, Bassie's been absolutely dynamic, and
yeah, yeah,
I thought he I thought he was an absolute certain starter, and I found that quite surprising that Marcus Silva um, went back to Ream, and I don't mean that in any negative or condescending way to
no, of
Tim
course
Ream,
not.
but I thought it was a surprising kind of retreat where he could have got on the front foot and gone, "This is how we're going to defend."
Yeah, the
So
only thing I
I was a
found,
bit
yeah,
surprised.
the only thing I found really confusing about it is I was actually fine with Ream starting, but Bassi not getting any minutes at all. I thought that was
Mm,
strange. Especially, I
mm.
mean, especially when we really actually needed some like attacking presence. I know he's a center back, but I mean, he's really like I've said it before, he's bombastic. Like he gets in there, he can create chances as well as like defend pretty confidently. Now we I do kind of feel that I don't want to say Jimenez had a bad game, but I do kind of feel that he was absolutely fine, but I think it really highlighted the quality difference between Mitrovic and Jimenez just in terms of presence, and maybe Jimenez can actually get to that point again, kind of in the same way that Vinicius grew into the side as the season went on. But yeah, Mitrovic comes on and Bobby Decordova Reed in the second half. We start to get going again with the introduction of Mitrovic and Pereira. I felt that once the boys came back, entirely different game. And then from that point onwards, we got our goal. It wasn't anything overly special, I don't think. But yeah, as you said before, we just nipped it. Any thoughts that you want to add?
Yeah, you just summarized the whole game. I think we're done. It's been great. Um,
What's your
Look,
star sign? I can
to
get your
to
astrology up if you want.
to go back to the comment on Jimenez and to Colm's question that he thought Jimenez was starved. I didn't think Jimenez had a bad game, but I felt like he was largely ineffective, and it
Yeah.
feels a bit unfair saying that, but it just felt like he failed to impose himself
Mm,
in a way that you want your striker to. I mean, he did have one shot which on another day, a few inches to the right, and that would have actually skidded in off the
mm.
post. So
Yeah,
in
he
a
literally got one
way,
shot and then he got sent
yeah,
off.
he was a little unlucky because half an inch the other way, and we would have been celebrating the fact that he's really getting going now. So
Mm,
he didn't have a terrible game, and I like the fact that he's very busy. But I still don't think we've entirely worked out a way of actually playing him into to our best advantage.
Yeah.
I've heard words that there's a focus on, you know, crossing from our wingers, being more on the floor and to feet. Um, I saw that. And maybe there's some evidence that Robinson is trying to do that. I don't know. But um, say what you like, whether Mitrovic scores or not, he did. He was very much a part of that build-up play to actually getting the goal. And whilst
Mm,
it may have been a tap in, there was an overload that we actually created there, and it actually started with a really proactive one touch from Harry Wilson. He
mm,
squares the ball in centrally, and Mitrovic plays a beautifully weighted pass for Pereira to kind of make a really great effort and center the ball, and obviously Bobby arrives and taps it in. Thank goodness, because for the number of times that um, Everton came at us, they on all probabilities should have scored. They really should have scored
I'm
again
really
if it
putting that
wasn't.
down to Everton not being very good. Like
No, I'm putting that down to Bert Leno being absolutely ridiculously good.
he was incredible. He was incredible. And if I was coming at Bert Leonard, I'd shit myself as well. But at the same
So
time, I feel like,
can I ask
yeah,
you
hit me.
what were your thoughts on Sasa Lukic? How did you think he
Oh,
played?
okay. Okay. I mean, I I really like Sasa Lukic. I feel that we have this conversation every single time. Do you know what? I'm almost getting to the point where I'm like, I see what he does. I hate the comparison between him and Polina because it's so unfair because they're so different in terms of what they offer and what they bring. I mean, I want to see a game with Polina and Sasa as opposed to Polina and Reed. I get the combination of Polina Reed. I know why that works. I do feel that like give it time, Sasa Lukic is going to be a better player than Reed in the starting lineup in a fully fit team. But he he should not be playing Polina's role. He's essentially just been shoehorned in there because Polina couldn't be there. So it's such a hard comparison. I mean, like it's I know. I'm sure you probably have a different mindset on this, and I know that you're not hugely on the Sasa Lukic train. That's fine, but
No,
I
I've
don't
got. I don't dislike the player. I don't think we've seen the best of him. Um, I don't think he's repeated his Torino form as yet. Not that I followed
know.
that closely, but everything I hear, um, I think it's just unfortunate that I'm just not really certain where he fits, and
Yeah,
that we've found the right place for him. And clearly,
Steve Reynolds.
he's
The words out of your mouth.
Oh, thanks, Steve. Great minds. And obviously, as we know, he's filling a role at the moment. He's doing a job, and Polini is our first pick for that. Absolute rock in defensive midfield. And dare I say, and I did comment on this in the previous podcast, that I was concerned that without Polina, however well our defense played, we're always vulnerable because
Yeah.
we do not have that wall of defense in midfield.
And we're so
And I
used
think
to that now as well. It's so integral to how we play, and I feel that we can't
Well,
really.
I think Deitch also kind of worked this out. I mean, Sean Deitch may not be your most exciting manager, but he's no fool, and he
Yeah.
knows how to he knows how to foil and spoil.
Mm,
And I think, from memory, I think he actually played five in the midfield and just kind of flooded and overloaded us,
yeah.
and it showed. They just seemed to. Um, Whilst I think there was a point for much of the first half where we actually had like 70-30 in terms of possession. Um, when they got the ball, it it looked uncomfortable and nervous.
Mm,
Um, you
yeah, I
know,
agree.
carrying the ball for anyway. And I think, unfortunately, I don't think Kenny Tete had an amazing game. He didn't have a terrible game, but it wasn't what you normally see. He didn't seem that combative.
Mm,
Um, and I thought Robinson was okay in the second half, much better in the. Sorry, I thought he was okay in the first half, much better in the second. But perhaps the Mitrovic and Pereira switch actually made the difference.
Yeah,
Well, not to
and
mention Bobby Decordova scored.
oh yeah, of course. Like reliable BDR, this Swiss Army
I
man.
actually thought I was pretty surprised when Willian disappeared, because I thought he was playing pretty well in the first half, and I know he picked up a yellow, which Silva might have been concerned about, but I don't know that it was ever clarified as to why he was taken off.
Mm. I feel that Willian only just has so much in the tank nowadays, and I mean it's very similar to the Sam Kerr situation. Sam Kerr can basically only play maybe like 30 minutes at the moment with her injury, and I feel that Willian has a cap on what he's realistically able to do, and we just kind of work around that. Now, on the substitutions. Now, maybe this is me reading a little bit too much into it, but Mitrovic taking the armband over Ream. Now, this is me getting very kind of tinfoil hat on. Is that a symbolic gesture of like I am committed to the team now? Am I really getting like too journalistically deep? Or is that a symbolic message, or is he still out the door? Like what's going on there?
Well, clearly I don't know, but I
Paint
did
me a
notice it.
narrative. Paint me a
Yeah.
picture.
I did notice it. I think everyone noticed it, not least because the camera zoomed in hard on it.
Did they zoom in hard?
Yeah, I think they noticed it.
Okay.
Yeah, I really don't know what was going on there. Um, was it that Ream thought he was going to be substituted? Maybe that was part of the plan, and then they changed their mind.
Look, it
I
could
don't
be
know.
nothing, or it could be everything. It's just what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know that Silver would be drawn to make that kind of metaphorical statement about Mitro. I don't think he kind of fusses too much about what people think at that level.
I mean,
Um,
it's either a brilliant piece of screenwriting or just a faux pas that we're reading too much into. But it's something I want to talk about because I just
maybe Ream didn't have his contact lenses in, and he thought Mitro was someone else. Who knows?
I think it was TC who gave him the
Yeah,
armband,
okay,
so I'm
yeah,
not
that's
sure.
right. Yeah, TC gave the armband. You're right.
Uh,
No,
Maybe
it
TC
was.
just hates Tim Ream at the moment for stealing his captaincy, and he's just like, "Nah, bugger off! I'm giving it to Mitrovic." I'm
Yeah,
not ruling that out. I'd be
I
jealous
think
of
I
that hair
am.
as well. Let me
Yeah, I
paint.
don't
Let
know.
me paint here.
I don't think Silva's about placating the fan base anymore on Mitrovic. I think he's sort of he said his bit in the presser. He said, "I don't have a problem with Mitrovic. He's training. He's ready to play, and I don't think Silva wants to be drawn on any further, only because he knows he can't win because it's not in his control. So I think he's kind of given up on that."
I think I can't remember if it was you or Jack, but you guys sent me an interview with Mitrovic saying, "Yeah, I'm committed and I'm ready to be here." And it did remind me of my last interview that I had with HR before I quit. So anything's up in the air, you know.
Yeah.
Do you want to quickly summarize the Everton game? Your thoughts, feelings, or emotions, because we have Brentford coming up this weekend as well. Now we beat them preseason, but obviously the Premier League is a whole other destination. Now, following the Everton game, how do you feel about going into Brentford at this stage? Obviously, we're going to cover this way more in depth with Jack, but
Uh, I'm kind of nervous because I saw. I didn't exactly think Brentford were um, a weak showing in the US Summer Series. If I
yeah,
look at their squad, they they seem to have a pretty good squad. They seem
mm.
to be really well prepared. Um, they they
Drew with
were.
Spurs.
I watched the highlights. I didn't watch the whole game, They look pretty sharp to me. I'm
Mm,
concerned. The only positive is that we're playing them at home,
yeah.
and so we've got the whole of Craven Cottage behind us. But I I'm by no means banking any points at this point, and I'm
Mm.
kind of concerned.
Yeah, I think that game is really going to come down to like who's starting. I feel like if that's a Mitrovic, Andreas, and Polina start, maybe even a Bassi start as well. Honestly, I feel like that's a pretty serious game. Um, I feel that we can edge it. I definitely feel that we can edge it with a full strength team, but ooh, it's
Yeah, but it would need Mitrovic back to his absolute best,
mm,
um, and can we really imagine Polina starting? I think that's highly unlikely, given that he's just too important an asset
mm.
to force him to try and play 90 minutes, having been out of action for so long,
Well, speaking of
on a
assets
recurring
as
injury.
well. Well, speaking of assets, um, I now that transfers are the bane of my existence, and I have absolutely no interest in talking about them. But Adama Traore come out of nowhere. Just signed him. Now, I'm not sure if you know that much about Adama Traore. He is very oily, very hench, and really, really, really fast. He is every
I did.
14-year-old ultimate team player's wet dream. Everybody essentially tries to sign him on career mode, so I'm really excited for that in this coming season and in this updated version of Pro Evo or FIFA or whatever. But as a player in a Premier League team, bit hit and miss. Potentially an upgrade from Dan James. Honestly, it's. I mean,
Yeah, look, um, I'm slightly worried about the fact that the only signing we can do in a week
fast.
or two of the transfer window is a free one. It kind of worries me,
Yeah.
um, and I don't want to downplay Traore because I think he's potentially dangerous. I think he's always a player that kind of bothers you because he's so lightning fast and he's strong. He's got much better quality than Dan James with the ball, um,
It's a really
for
hard
sure.
debate that. I'm not
Sorry.
100% sure if I fully agree. Not 100% sure
Okay.
if I
Well,
fully
that
agree.
that that's that's probably my yeah. I think that's my feeling. Um,
This could be Dan James
so
too. I just want you to get aware of that.
yeah, yeah. I don't hate the signing right now, but he's not Callum Hudson-Odoi in
No.
terms of quality, and we
Look, we need
still
depth.
yeah, we do, of course we need depth, and I'm very happy to have him, and I'm glad that we didn't pay money for him. I don't know what his wages are, but I'm guessing they're going to be sensible and not crazy, and they're going to be around modest, so
Mm.
that's fine. Uh, but I, I hope that does not mean that we suddenly now don't go for Hudson Odoi,
Yeah. Yeah.
because we need a lot more sizzle than that.
Yeah, like it really feels just very out of nowhere. I haven't heard any kind of like talk about this. I remember some brief murmurings on Twitter, but usually I get like a little bit more foreplay before we just go straight into that. So it's very very I feel I've got a bit of a whiplash on this one. Yeah, so I but again, I think this is going to be good for us. I mean, look, Spanish international, Premier League proven. Obviously, I don't think he's starting, but I think really good to have in the mix. But it's just a bit weird.
Well, yeah, it is a bit odd. But I think if let's assume if we don't get any new wingers, I think he's in the mix, and he possibly comes off the bench, or if there's an injury, I wouldn't feel uncomfortable about him starting at all. Story goes there's a great understanding and sort of professional what's the word, connection with Jimenez, and I think Jimenez was instrumental in kind of talking him into joining Fulham, and
Mm,
that's good and that's nice. Um, but yeah, look, I'm not overjoyed. I'm kind of a bit neutral about it. I'd love it to turn out to be that little secret weapon of, you know, ultra speed that we can throw to if that's what we need in a game. It'd be
mm.
amazing. We no one hated the idea, even me, and I was a pretty strong critic of Dan James. I never hated the concept of it. I just got frustrated that
You just hated Dan
um,
James. Yeah.
no. I just got so frustrated that the quality was just not there. We may as well have hired a top 10 Olympic sprinter.
Yeah, but then my ultimate career team wouldn't be as good. So you gotta take it with a pinch of salt. I am the one thing I do appreciate though is the fact that we've signed Jimenez, and in the same vein of the Brazilian cartel and getting Mitrovic, a little friend in Sasa Lukic, it almost just feels like we've just signed Traore just so Jimenez can have a little Spanish speaking friend. And I am about that life. I think it's precious. I think it's adorable. And I love it going forward. Now, actually, Steve raises a really good point. The fantasy is still going. Everybody jump on that. I wish I'd be able to tell you where I'm sitting in the fantasy, but I'll be 100% honest. I have not looked because I told everybody that I wasn't very good at fantasy. And Dad, you can tell me right now if you've checked your fantasy and how you're going. But yeah, last time I
Well,
checked, actually, it was very close to Jack. I do remember that.
I had the last move I made on my fantasy was just before we kicked off, and Jack reminded me to take Polina my out of my team, which I did, and I pressed the save button, and I'm okay at IT. Pardon me, and I came back the next day, and Polini was in my team with 0 points. So I don't know what happened there, and I kind of lost a little bit of interest again.
Yeah,
But
you
but
didn't like the
but
interface, and then you checked out.
just to respond to Steve, you may be surprised, Steve, that Dan James is not in my fantasy team, unfortunately.
I mean, there is still time. There is still time. Although I'm pretty sure Dan James is in the championship right now, so I'm not really sure how that works out. But please engage with it. Actually, genuinely, last time I checked it, I think we had something like 56 participants. I don't know who
Yeah.
these people are, but bless you all. I am continually impressed by the engagement that we get on the That's So
I
Cretin
was I
Fulham
was
podcast.
I was actually alarmed at how long it took me to actually get the arithmetic right
Oh,
to
don't
equal
start me.
100.
Don't
It took
start
me
me.
so
That
long.
oh,
It
it's so
took
like
me so
I don't
long.
look. I don't care for things like fantasy, so I just continuously got frustrated because it's genuinely it's like a tease because you feel like you've gotten everybody that you need, and then at the last hurdle, there's like a point 0.5 that's always
Yeah.
missing, and then they throw you
Yeah,
with like,
yeah.
no, you've got too many players from Fulham. It's a really annoying like
Yep.
secretarial kind of like, no, you've signed too many players
Yep.
from Man City.
I had all of those. I had all of
Ugh,
those little
ugh.
prompts.
Honestly, this day and age, I'm sick of it. Capitalism. Now, daddy, my friend, my compadre. Now, in the slides, obviously, Jack has included very kindly the possession of the game. So 9 shots to 19, 2 shots on target from us to 9,
This is very
556
chaotic, Sam. We
passes.
finished talking about this, but let's go through it
Oh
anyway.
my God, let me finish. Sam is host for this podcast. Now, obviously, Jack's popped in the Matildas game. That's going to be playing tomorrow, 6 p.m. Australian Western Standard Time, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern, 10 a.m. in the UK, and 3 a.m. What's PDT?
Pacific Pacific time and the 6 a.m. Hang on a second, 3 a.m. Pacific time and 6 a.m. Eastern time in the US.
Well, I went to private school. That's money down the toilet. Anyway, and obviously the table.
You,
Now
you,
Spain have
it's,
gone
you,
through. Let's
you're
not dwell. Let's
actually,
not dwell. Let's not dwell.
yeah. Please don't remind me. I'm the one who paid for it.
um, it's okay. I've come through with unprecedented charisma, and that's getting me this far in life. Now, please watch the Women's World Cup. Obviously, it's England versus Australia. It's going to be really, really tense, and Spain have obviously gone all the way through. And thank you, Steve Reynolds, as well. That's a fantastic point. It is Jack's birthday tomorrow. We want to make a shout out. Jack, happy birthday. I am your brother. I love you. Dad, did you want to quickly talk about Jack's date of birth? Because you were actually there, but on the hour in Switzerland.
Yeah. Um, well, other than the fact that it's Jack's big 35th tomorrow, which is a pretty big day. And it's quite funny, actually, because my wife and I, in fact, the lady who is your mother,
My
um,
mother, yes, I'm
offered,
familiar.
yeah, offered to actually buy him and his wife dinner tomorrow night, babysit the kids as a birthday present. But he actually declined. Well, I think he took a rain check. Um, and he said, "Well, actually, can we just come around to your house and watch the football? Because that's what I'll be wanting to do anyway. So it's an absolute waste of money, me going out for dinner tomorrow night, because I'll just be on my phone watching the Matildas."
I mean, that's a
But I,
very, very fair assessment. I would love to hear Tegan's side of that argument, but
but actually, what I think he really did was got a free meal out of us, plus a dinner out, plus a
caretaking of
rain
the
check on
miners.
yeah, a rain check on babysitting, and I'm pretty sure he just picked my pocket on that one. But never mind.
Look, I mean, when you see a bundle, you got to take it. And speaking of bundles, Fulham currently sixth in the table. Now, we don't know how long this will last, but we're so close to Champions League spots, and I just want to relish in this moment just for as long as we can. I love the start of the season because, I mean, this could be the apex. This could be the start of something new, as they said in High School Musical, or it could get a little bit. It could go down. It could go down, but you know what? We'll cross that
Did
bridge when we come to it. Yep.
did you did you catch a view or of highlights of any of the other games over the weekend?
Oh, great question. I mean, I did. I definitely peaked at the Brentford game. I mean, I like Ange Postecoglou, and I really just wanted to see what he was doing with Spurs. I catch the Chelsea Liverpool game. That I mean, I hate that Chelsea's an actual side again. I was really enjoying them being terrible, like that. That made me happy. Um, but
Well, I
they
don't think
seem
we
to be
expect them not
competitive
to be
now.
terrible, but they just might perform better.
Yeah, Liverpool's in a bit of a weird spot as well. I don't like Jerry's kind of out on that Liverpool team. I don't really know, um, like what they're gonna be, but it's so hard to tell like this early in the season, just because every team can go either way. I mean, you're gonna have obvious like Haaland's probably gonna get like 150 goals just by eating concrete because that's just what Haaland does. And I think Arsenal have like really sorted out a lot of recruitment, so I think they're potentially going to be strong. It's so hard, isn't it? I mean, we were talking
But
to Russ
what's
about this.
interesting though, what's interesting, we're one game in, and often we can really love the view of the Premier League table where we're sitting in
Mm,
third or second or something like that. Even if it's only Friday night and no one else has played yet. Um,
mm.
but here we are, one game in, and look at the top four. Um, purely on the basis of 3 points, but also goal difference. They're actually scoring lots of goals and just off to the races, aren't they?
Yeah, and do you know as well? Like because this is our second official season doing this. I'm not sure about you, but I've kind of become a bit of a guy now where now my friends always knew that like I was a Fulham supporter, but now it's come down to like whenever I see most people, everyone just asks my opinion of it outright, and that's not necessarily the relationship that I had with most people. But it's just funny that that's kind of what it's come to, just on the basis of this being successful. And it's weird.
Well, don't
It's
get carried
wonderful.
away. Don't get carried away because
Let me get
a, cou-
carried away. I am the host of this
a,
podcast. I want to carry. I want to carry
a, cou-
all the kilos that you give me.
not not that long ago, there were people probably stopping Donald Trump in the streets and asking him about politics. And what the hell did he know?
And on that note, look, just because Jack's not here, I feel that we can probably wrap that up there. And we can obviously we'll be celebrating with Jack tomorrow for his birthday, and we have the Brentford game, which I'm sure we'll probably find a way to do a pre-game, and if we don't, then we'll just cover it following the game. And yeah, I mean, come on, the Matildas. I was about to say come on your whites, but that's how you finish the podcast, and I don't think that we're fully finished with the outro yet. But Dad, predictions for the Matildas, predictions for Brentford at this stage, or did you want to hold off on the predictions for Brentford for when we get Jack on this?
Yeah, I think we'll probably try and get together before the weekend, before Brentford.
Yeah.
If you're, I think the whole point about the Matildas right now is that they're knocking over giants and they're entirely unpredictable. And
Mm,
the thing that happens when you've got a kind of never say die attitude with a smile on your face and a whole nation behind you, it's entirely unpredictable as to what might happen, which is
mm.
what is so lovely and exciting about it. Um, I think, God Almighty, I hope it doesn't go to penalties again. I don't know that I can
Oh,
do that.
yeah.
Um, and you can't surely be that lucky twice. I was I've never seen that number of penalties actually saved because they
I did.
weren't out
I,
out and out
yeah.
misses. I've never seen that many penalty saves ever. Um,
I didn't. I was actually getting to a point where I was like, I genuinely don't know how football works once you've done all of when everyone's kicked the penalty. Do you
they
go
go
to the
around
reserve
again.
bench? Do they just go
No, they
around
go
again?
around.
Well, I didn't. I didn't
Yeah,
know. I've never been in that. Never been in that situation
yeah.
before. Oh,
Um, I'm going to say Sam Kerr starts as she hasn't to date, and I think Australia will win 2-1. How about that?
ooh. I mean,
In
that's going to be a hell of a game
in
then.
within the first 90 minutes.
And then are we going to break the record for most watched game? Are we going to get to 8 million, 9 million?
Oh, I think we're possibly maxing out at that level of the population. Um, I mean, that must be what's that? 7, 3, just under 30%. Is that right? What's the
Oh,
population of
honestly,
Australia? About 28 million.
yeah, something like that. I thought it was like 23,
So
but yeah,
20,
it could have gone up.
so it's probably about 25% of the population, like total
Yeah.
population, not even potential viewing audience. Um, but yeah, as as Colm says, seriously, they're going to have 75,000 people screaming their lungs out for them, and that's a huge advantage. I actually feel a bit sorry for
Mhm.
England playing in that environment. It's going to be a cauldron. It's going to be literally like
Oh yeah.
Luton playing Real Madrid in Spain. Um,
Well, I look forward to
and
seeing it, and obviously, and like following this podcast, I can assure you guys we are going to talk way more about Fulham. But I'm sorry, I've just been too. I've been taken by this. It's such a great narrative, and I'm sure Fulham's going to come up with a couple better ones. But you know what? Just for the time being, let us indulge, and we appreciate you for it. Now, Dad, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for doing this with me. I hope I have done justice from the hosting side, and yeah, we'll get
well, I
Jack
think
back
there's only
on as
one
soon as we
person who will
can.
judge that, but
Who's
well,
judging
there might
that?
be a few. I'll give you a guess. He's got a birthday tomorrow. He's
Oh
35. No, I'm
yeah.
only kidding.
Ugh, I mean,
Um,
can't
no, you've
please the
done
birthday
a great
boy.
job, Sam. Well done.
Thank you kindly.
It's been fun to chat, and I'm just delighted that we're back to actual fixtures and been able to talk about football.
So
Even
sick of the
though,
transfers.
yeah, even though there's probably a lot to forget about that game last weekend, I'm just happy that we're on the road and we've got some points.
Excellent. Well, after that whirlwind of an outro, we'll see you soon, Jack, and happy birthday. And for the foreseeable future, come on, you whites.